Last thing we'd like to talk about, and this is actually really tied in partly with pre-treatment, but also with the success of your business. We've been talking a lot about getting good white layers with pre-treatment and doing it right, and that's an important thing. But one of the other things that you have to remember is that the way a white ink works can have a lot to do with how much white ink you're using. And that's important because 80% of the ink that's on any of these black shirts or this blue shirt here is white ink. We're making that base right there. And one thing that I've seen across the industry is really understanding the relationship of the resolution that you're using on your printer and the pass count that you're using on your printer to ink usage. We've done a couple of studies on this to just kind of understand what this looks like across the industry. One of the things that we feel really good about the DuPont series of inks, the P5000, 6000, and 7000 inks for industrial printers, as well as the Series E ink for personal promotional use, is that we have a very highly pigmented white ink. And what does that mean to you? That means you get a nice white layer, but it also means you use less white ink. So I'll use an example. We had a situation where we were printing our white layers at 720 by 720 4-pass. And customers looking at a couple other solutions out there, both printer and ink solutions. And what they found was that they had to, with another solution, print everything at 1440 by 1440, and they had to also be in 4-pass, but they also did 2 white layers to get a good white layer. Now that's using roughly twice as much ink. Actually, if you did the drop counts on it, it's more than twice the amount of ink. At the end of the day, that's going to end up costing a lot of money. And we would say to anybody who's looking at these systems, one important thing to do is to push, whether it's an ink vendor, including DuPont, or a printer vendor, when they're showing you samples or when they're doing samples for you, that most of these systems will tell you how much ink is being used. And they should be willing and able to show you, gee, we used 8 milliliters of ink for this shirt. We use 16 milliliters of ink for that shirt. That's going to go a long way towards your profitability. Most of the cost, in fact, in one of these prints is in ink. So understanding what the printer is able to do, what the printer is going to force you to do, but also what the ink is going to let you do are important things. So again, I would really say to anybody who's looking at a new system, make sure you know what they recommend for pass counts, what they recommend for resolutions, and then make sure that they're coming back to you and saying, here's how many milliliters of white ink we use, and here's how many milliliters of color ink we use. But again, the white ink is really the important piece in here, because that's the majority of what's done here. And being able to save on white ink means your profitability is going to go up, as well as obviously your quality. Vince, you want to talk a little bit about printers?
Yeah, so as we know, all printers are slightly different depending on the model you have and the RIP software that is being used. You could have the same print across the board, but you could be having one of these printers with more laydown of white. Where our ink is great at is the fact that you can print at a lower DPI to compete with the incumbent's ink at the higher resolution that they're using. So with lower pass count, your speed will pick up, your quality will go down. The more ink lay down, the more passes you're going to use, you're going to have a slower print with higher quality. So these are all things that you'll look into depending on your job per shirt and per order that you're looking for.
But Vince, isn't it true that if you have a better ink, you are going to be able to get a better quality at a lower pass count, and you're going to get more shirts per hour at that point?
That is true. And it's also dependent upon your pre-treat. If you have a better crashing pre-treat, you will be able to print at a higher resolution and quicker speeds and come out with a better image.
Great, thanks.
Okay.